We came to believe that we were powerless and that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 1, Alcoholics Anonymous. Hello, I'm Oscar Crawford. Welcome to this edition of the Teaching Ministry from New Eden. Today we're going to begin a 12-week series looking at the 12 steps that began with a program called Alcoholics Anonymous, begun by a man famously, anonymously known as Bill W. And we're going to talk about it because people are living through a number of self-destructive behaviors to the point that many are suffering and dying. I want to draw some attention to that kind of behavior starting today, building on that, and seeing if we can offer some help to people who are going through alcoholism, drug addiction, sexual addiction, overeating, gambling, and just a plethora of challenges in their personal lives. Thanks for joining me. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for the privilege one more time to share with friends and loved ones around the corner and around the world. I appreciate the privilege. I appreciate the sense of responsibility to share what I believe you invested and deposited in me. Help me to give it back in such a way that is a blessing to me and to others. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I want to call this series 12 Spiritual Principles to Recovery, to Relationship with God, with self, and others. You know, I continue to build on the great commandment from the New Testament, the Gospel of Matthew, where it says, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind." This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like unto it. I believe that in that few sentences it includes all of the primary responsibilities for being a good human being. Not a perfect one, but a good human being. If we can keep our priorities established like that and our relationships ordered like that, lives can be generally successful, and we can build from there. And it's not just new that it is shown up there in the New Testament when Jesus shared it with his disciples, his primary followers. This had origin in the Old Testament after Hebrew people had been delivered from slavery in Egypt. And God gave some laws to his servant Moses, and this was the number one law. Want to think about that. I'm going to always have that built into whatever I'm sharing with you. And today when we begin looking at the 12 steps of AA that have now addressed many self-destructive behaviors, I want to do it in the context of loving God, loving self, and loving others. Whenever our relationships are out of alignment or out of order, problems literally are going to follow. When things become more important than people, relationships are out of alignment and relationships are out of order, and there are going to be problems. When people begin to be more invested in their time with alcohol and drugs, risky sexual behavior, bad things are going to happen. There's no good end to that behavior. It never ends well. Relationships die when men or women drink so much that their relationships are affected. Husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends, mates, they don't want to be mated to alcohol and the person. They want to be mated and love the person they fell in love with. And when alcohol comes between two who are in love, problems follow. Listen, how many people do you know who have gone out to a bar and drunk more than 2 or 3 people should have drunk, and then they think that they're at their best, they get in their car to drive home, they go too fast, they drive too reckless, they get stopped by the police. That's good. I mean, that's the best thing that can happen if somebody gets caught driving under the influence. At least something has gotten between the person and their behavior to keep them from not only being destructive to themselves, but others. But you know, like I know, that too often it has happened that someone driving drunk has run into other people and ended their lives. Substance abuse has killed way too many people and is killing people right now. We want to try and make a change in that. All right, an example that I want to use as I begin today, and maybe I'll be going a little slower as I make these presentations because I believe that they are really, 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 really important. And if we can have one person deliver themselves from the slavery of addiction, we will have done a good thing. You and I together, we will have done a good thing. All right. Late 80s, early 90s, I'm not really sure about the time. I bought an album because there was one hit song on it. I don't even remember the name of the group. But the name of the lead song was Crack Killed Applejack. Applejack Lewis was a successful high school football player, and sometimes when people are really successful at sports, it makes them a little nutty. They think that they can do whatever they want to do. So some high-profile athletes get in trouble for rape. I'm not going to call any names. You know all those names yourself. They get habits. They become alcoholics or they become drug addicts. They take steroids to improve their performance, and so it generally always comes to a bad end. Well, Applejack Lewis was no different, except he became addicted to crack cocaine. Applejack Lewis became so addicted to crack cocaine that he began to dress in drag and sell his body as a prostitute to get enough money to support what he needed. And Applejack Lewis died on the side of the road, dressed in drag, trying to sell himself. And his last words, according to the tune, said, "I'm Applejack Lewis, and I just want to go home." The song says, "Crack killed Applejack. Jumped in and he couldn't jump back. He was just too blind to see y'all. Death lives in the rock house." Well, it did for him, and it has killed many. And what we want to do over the next 12 weeks is set up a line of defense between people and their self-destructive habits in such a way that they can reclaim their life, they can reclaim their relationships, they can get back to work, they can earn incomes, they don't have to lose everything anymore just because of a habit. I wish I could tell you some things that people had told me over the years, but a senior lady told me when I was in college that a whiskey glass and a woman's behind had made a horse's behind of many men. She's right. I wish I could have said that a little clearer, but you get the point. And for those of you who may be offended by the analogy or illustration, you will just need to forgive me. I'm more concerned about saving somebody from self-destructive behavior than your little feelings about the words I may have used just to describe that scenario. All right, we came to believe that we were powerless and that our lives had become unmanageable. Step number 1 of the 12 spiritual principles, I'm calling them to recovery, to relationship with God, with self, and with others. All right, so what are people losing when they get so invested in a habit? Well, I'm suggesting to you already that habits come between people and their primary relationships. I've seen men and women lose their relationships with their loved ones because they would just leave. They couldn't take it anymore. A man comes home, he's gambled all of his money away after getting drunk or spent all of his money on prostitutes, or just comes home broke, busted, and disgusted, and that doesn't feed a family. That doesn't provide support. It could be a woman. Whoever this primary person is who's bringing money in to support a family, who's giving their money away to support other things, that's just not good. It's just not good. And men leave drunken women more than women leave drunken men. I can't make that make sense to you, but it does suggest that women have the capacity or the desire to hang on long enough for somebody to get better more than men. But it's a problem either way. Children are affected. You know, you can go to work late a number of times until your employer gets tired of you, and they'll say, "You know what? We love you enough. We're just going to let you stay home from now on. We're not going to pay you anymore either. But we can't have you behaving like you behave. You can't just come to work when you want to and do what you want and not perform at the level of our expectation of you. We love you enough that you can just stay home. And by the way, again, we're not going to send you a paycheck anymore. Thank you so much." And people lose jobs. People lose respect for people who live like that. You know, every community has had a person who was there drunk. When I was a child, where we used to go to get our hair cut, there was one older black man, black community, one older black man. He looked like he could have been my grandfather. We called him Mr. Knee-High. I don't really even know his name. Mr. Knee-High was always drunk. Where we went to get our hair cut, he made chili burgers in the back of the barbershop for sale. But when he wasn't doing that, at least minimal kind of work, I can see him in my mind now, sitting on the sidewalk out in front of the barbershop, so drunk that he's passed out, his face hanging over his body, drooling. And people just walked past him laughing. Who wants that to be their story? Nobody really wants to grow up to say, "I want to grow up to be just like that." Don't you want your life to have meaning and value for God, for you, and for others? Don't you want people to be able to have respect for you and love you and care about you? Well, please take right now to be the moment you decide to turn your life around and realize that you can't do it by yourself. When you have admitted that you're powerless and your life is unmanageable, you have no power over your drug of choice. You have no power over your behavior. And when you engage in them, you do crazy things. You come home with diseases you can't shake. You come home with conditions that you can't get rid of real soon. Don't you want the now of right now to be your moment of change? Okay, well, good. I hope that's you. I hope you're crying loud yes. Here's the first thing you need to do. You've got to find a way to ask for help. You've got to let somebody else know that you're suffering. People already know, but you've got to admit it out loud to them from your mouth and say, help me. Ask for help. And don't just ask someone. You got to ask for help like we market businesses. When we market businesses, we try to find every way imaginable to get our business and our product before as many eyeballs and minds as we can. So what you want to do is you want to cry so loud and so long that someone who has the ability to help you will come and point you in the direction that you can get some help. There are plenty of places to get help for people with self-destructive behaviors, but you've got to let somebody know, or at least let people who care about you enough draw your attention to, bruh, sis, you need help. The Apostle Paul, so I can connect this to the Bible. The Apostle Paul, in his writing in Romans chapter 7 and around verse 19, I am paraphrasing this, but I invite you to go and read. And for those of you who might be dealing with some recovery issues, Bonnie and I have taught from this Bible over the years. It is called the Life Recovery Bible. It has many illustrations and applications of how the scriptures speak to the human need to recover. And so I'm sharing with you right now what the Apostle Paul says in Romans chapter 7. And in King James he says, and this is hard to get because it just doesn't flow. My uncle used to try and say this to me as I was a young man, just so I would understand that there are times when we would do our very best, we seem to do just the opposite. He would say, and my family called me, if any of us get to be close enough, I would allow you to as well. But my family calls me Oscar Lee. They take the R out of Oscar and join my middle name to it and call me Oscar Lee. So he would say, Oscar Lee. The Apostle Paul wrote, the good that I would, I do not do that. But the very thing that I am sure I would not do, I find myself doing all the time. What does that mean? It means we admit that we are powerless and that our lives are unmanageable. And the apostle was just drawing attention to that's the condition of being human. Oh my! What I want to make sure I do because it's right, I don't do it. And the very thing I would never do, I'm doing it. What is wrong with me? And some of us ask ourselves that question. What really is with me when I am not equal to my ideals of myself? Well, here let's take another look. When your relationships are out of alignment and out of order, problems follow. Please hear me. When your relationships are out of alignment and out of order, problems follow. Life is not meant to be lived alone. We're meant to share an experience such that we don't have to draw only on the ideas from our own mind, but we have the benefit of drawing on the ideas of many others. Please hear me today. You do not have to suffer your experience, live out your good times or your bad times alone, because life was meant to be shared. Oh, hey, life was meant to be shared. Life was meant to be shared. And when shared well with others who love and care about us, it reaches a level that's called intimate. And when you reach a level of intimacy with people who care about you, their touch and their presence almost seems like magic, because the very air that you breathe gives you power. Oh, don't you like that? The very air that you breathe when you're in the presence of people who love and care about you, that you have a level of intimacy with, the very air you breathe feels like power. Don't you want some of that? Let me tell you, that's not self-destructive. That's constructive. That builds you up. That gives you power. That gives you the ability to believe in yourself that you can do. We came to believe that we were powerless and that our lives had become unmanageable. Our self-destructive behaviors were killing us and our relationships and our opportunities. Let's draw a line in the sand together today and say, no more. Kids would say, hail to the no. No more. We're not doing that anymore. But I need help. I need help. Start with God. Work through yourself and with others. help is available to you. I can help you by pointing you in the right direction or sharing with you. My wife Bonnie and I have taught hundreds, perhaps thousands of people these principles to help them restore their lives. And we can point you to real people who were once addicted to crack and to alcohol and other behaviors that were killing them, and show you people who have restored lives. And if necessary, we'll have them share with you so you can know that there are people who have successfully gone from being addicts to free, responsible, loving, and productive people. I hope you've been able to hear me today. Thank you for joining me. There is an address at the bottom of your screen. It'll give you an email address, OscarCrawfordChristianMedia@gmail.com, and it will give you a blog, the New Eden blog, where we will introduce on each Friday a preview of the step that we'll be covering each week. Write to me at that email address. Let me send you a worksheet that you can begin to work to really get a look at what your life looks like, a good look at what powerlessness means, a good look at what unmanageability means, and a good look at your opportunity to begin to rebuild your life right now. These 12 spiritual principles to recovery, to relationship with God, yourself, and others will work. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to meeting you again at this time next week for Step 2. I'm Oscar Crawford. This is the teaching ministry of New Eden.